guys, it's Kelly from Cards by Christine here with you on a Technique Thursday to share with you the shaker card technique. So this card is upcoming in the July monthly class. And I love this little jar shaker dome and the beautiful, let's see here, effervescent elements. They're like little balls that are in there. And I've got some tips on how to utilize these elements to make a shaker card. So you are gonna love it. So we've got two pieces. One is more of a scrap, and one of them is this piece that the dome and the flowers are on. So I'm not going to go ahead and do all the flowers and everything like that because you can see what that looks like. But what we're gonna start with is stamping on our scrap paper. We're gonna take the gray color for our outline of the jar, or the vase, I should say. And now for this layout, it's pretty far down, so you want to kind of make note of that. And then we've got the water in the jar. That is going to be Pool Party. Okay, and then the set is called Bottled Happiness, and we've got it over here. And it's funny because there is no stems, and especially where this set is geared on these this punch and the shaker elements, feels weird to have an empty jar. So what we're gonna do is grab the Honeybee Home, this stamp right here, and we're gonna be very careful because this is gonna take a little MacGyvering, but we're gonna use our soft succulent marker, and we're gonna draw down the stem. Basically just put that in there. Now we need to get all the way from here to there. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go all the way up. And this is a rubber stamp, so it's not quite as easy to see what you're doing and where you're going with it. But we do our best. And I was gonna say, I feel like I got them right on top of each other. Well, I did. But Chris did a much better job. You can see the two distinct different stems. I tried. There is a learning curve in doing that, but that is how we got the stems in there, and that is where they came from. So if you're interested in filling your vase with some stems, you're going to shoot for the Honeybee Home set, and then basically drew from the bottom up to this flower, not jutting off with any of these side shoots. Okay, so that's how that look was achieved. Okay, gonna put that away. Then this is ready. We need to grab one of our vintage bottle shaker domes. So these are really nice. They come with the adhesive already cut to shape and on there. So that's really nice. And then we've got these effervescent elements. Now you don't want to overfill. It's scoop maybe. So like, I really like what Chris did here. When it's all down, it looks like it's covering just the water. So when I scooped them up, I kind of went to there-ish. And then there's two different ways of doing this. And you need, first of all, I'm gonna advise that we cover our effervescent elements because they are little balls that roll just about everywhere. And you need to keep this level because they're balls and they would just roll out. So either you can do your best to center it kind of seeing through the cardstock, or go ahead and lift it over your head. So we are in a very well lit area, and I can kind of see where the dome or where the bottle shape stamps through, but it is pretty difficult. So I'm gonna lift this over my head and make sure that I get it where it needs to be. And then I'll bring her back down in the scope for you. Okay, so I just lifted that above my head. Now it's stuck down, so I can flip it over and give it a nice press so that it firmly seals. So then that is how you go ahead and assemble that piece. Then on this piece, you can take your punch and then, so like if this was going on the card front, I'm just making a sample one. You know, you'd have the rounded corners. You could go ahead and stamp and then punch, or punch and then stamp. It's kind of whichever works with your workflow. But what I would do is I'm going to try to find myself center and then recognize that we've got it pretty close to the bottom. So we're looking at about not quite a 1/4 of an inch up. So those are kind of the measurements I'm keeping in mind as I'm preparing this. And then in terms of center, it's pretty simple to see where the center is on here, but sometimes I like to go ahead and grab a marker and measure center. So you can see where center is because that is the point at which it's the lowest, the last point that comes through on the punch. So if you lift your punch up, you can kind of make a mark on where center is. And then that gives you a place to shoot for, so that if you know the size of your paper and where center is on your paper, if you line those two up, then you're going to have a nice and centered image. So now this is getting punched out. So I can make the mark on here. So this is 3 inches wide. I don't know. Yep, 3 inches wide. So at 1.5 inches, I'm going to go ahead and make a tick. And then at 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to make another tick. So that one I made much lighter because if I don't get it right on, that's going to show. But now I've got these two, so that for sure is getting cut out. And then this little dot right there is where I'm shooting to line this up to. So now you can see my little purple mark on my punch is lining up with my little pencil mark. And then I'm going to bring it down to my dot, line that up, and now it can sway left to right. So you can see on this side, let's see if I can get that. It's not straight because you can tell there's less hanging out here than up there. So now as we've got weak pressure on the paper, because we don't want to punch through yet, we're going to shimmy it until it is straight or close enough to straight. So I'm not trying to pull it away from you. I'm just trying to get it into an angle where I can see. And then we're going to go ahead and punch through. And now you've got a nice and straight punch that you can layer your shaker dome into. All right, and then this was just a piece of scrap, so it doesn't matter how big it is. Obviously now the next step is going to be stamp, get this all pretty and how you want it, and then adhere. My suggestion for adhering it, there's many different adhesives that you can use. My personal preference in this situation would be to grab, I was looking for my take your pick tool, there it is. Maybe a couple glue dots on the shaker dome itself. And this is just, again, personal preference. If you follow along with the class, Chris can show you her preference. And actually, I see that that's not sticking. So that is not my preference. Sorry guys, I didn't go so far as to go that far into it in my practice round. Let's go ahead and use some tear and tape along the edge. So you'll get a nice strong adhesive out of the tear and tape. And then you can center it over here and lift off and center it on top and then press right into that adhesive. So there you go. That is your really nifty shaker for your card. And I'm gonna just take a quick minute to walk you through. So this is one of the cards for the July monthly. Chris is taking registration now if you're interested. Love the color scheme here so much. And then, you know, you've got the beautiful effervescence elements and then also the pearls on all these flower heads. So pretty. Finish it off with a cute baby bow and a sentiment on this little tag. Oh, I love it so much. Then we've got another 2 cards in the monthly card class. So here we have a card to say hello. Beautiful, lots of dimension. Love these embellishments. Very colorful, beautiful card for just a nice sentiment. Card to say hello. Throw it in the mail, spread some smiles. And then this is my favorite. Oh, so favorite. I owe you one or several. Got 2 beer, stein and a glass of beer and then a glass of wine on this wood grain kind of bar with some brads. Well, they're not brads, but they look like brads. Beautiful ribbon. Love the color scheme. Everything about this, I love, love, love. So here are your 3 July monthly cards that you can sign up for. If you have any questions about registering or questions about the cards, don't hesitate to reach out to Chris. And I hope you have a wonderful Technique Thursday and you can catch Chris later tonight for some live card making.